All right, we're recording. This is going to be a sort of impromptu. Are you recognizing my face? We got facial recognition here. I guess we do. Looks like it's in focus. Hopefully it'll hold focus here. I've got the Rode Video Mic Pro turned on there, and I'm going to be recording the audio with that. I've also got a GoPro up here. Hi, GoPro. And I'm going to do a video. This is probably the most requested video I get is, hey, can you do a video about gutting a deer, skinning a deer, quartering a deer, and processing a deer and all that. It's requests for videos about that topic. And I am not an expert on this stuff. I want to stress that right from the beginning, but I've done a lot of these, and I'll show you what I do. And I am anxious for you to comment about what you like about what I did, what you didn't understand, ask me questions. What you do understand and you don't like, tell me that too. Make sure you leave me comments about what you liked and what you didn't like, about this process, about what I'm doing here, and about whether it works, whether you got a better idea and all that kind of stuff. This is where I'm at. You're going to need a few things to do this. First of all, you're going to need a deer. Kind of goes without saying. I was fortunate enough, and everybody when they ask me, they're like, hey, can you do a video about processing a deer? And I'm like, man, you know, I'm a one-man band. It's just me doing this stuff. And usually I shoot a deer and I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and I don't have time to do these videos. Opening day, everything went, almost everything went, wait for the video, almost everything went as planned. And I shot this really nice doe. It's a mature doe. Shot her. She came into the 100-year-old apple tree at 8:30. I had her up here by 9:30, and I haven't gutted her yet. I'm going to show you that here. But everything, for the most part, went as best as you could have hoped. And now I've got the whole day. Yes, I can go out this afternoon, try a different location. I might do that. We'll see how it goes, how I feel at that time. But I'm going to be really worn out by the time I process this deer. I've been up since 4:30, so, you know, I'm not going to push it if I don't have to. It's the first day of the 37 days of awesome. Today is the first day of the Pennsylvania crossbow season. So I got plenty of time to go out there and deal with this stuff. So I thought, man, what a great time to do a video. I'm just going to leisurely sit here and shoot this video. So the first thing you're going to need is a nice doe or a nice buck, whatever you're fortunate enough for the crossbow gods to have given you. You take it and you be happy. As my daughter likes to say, you take what you get and you don't throw a fit. But no, I'm totally happy with this deer, and I couldn't be more excited, really. I'm in a great mood, and I get to make a video on top of it. What could be better? You're going to need a few things to make this work and make it convenient. Now, little story to start things with. I should tell you this too. You'll get a kick out of this maybe. When I was a kid, down behind the house here, I shot my first buck in what's the buck field, what you've heard me refer to as the buck field. And I shot that deer. I was 15 years old, and my dad was at the barn here below the house, and he came out of the barn and he looked around the corner and I'm like, yeah, I shot a deer. I shot a nice buck. And he got in the Jeep and drove down here. We had an old Willys Jeep that we used for that kind of stuff, and for going in the fields and going in the woods, cutting firewood, stuff like that. He drove that down here, and he's like, oh, I'm going to show you how to gut this deer. And he showed me how to gut the deer, and I watched and everything, and he did it all for me. And then we brought it up here, and my cousin actually came up and cut it up for me. That was awesome. That's a great family experience. Well, the next year, I was fortunate enough to be in the field behind the house here, what I call the doe field today, because there I shot my first doe. And it ran a little bit. We found it, and he brought the Jeep over. We went over and got it, and pulled it out the hedgerow there. And he says, all right, remember how to do it, how to gut it? And I like, geez, Dad, you know, I don't know. Maybe if I watched you one more time, you know, I'd learn something. I'll remember it next year and know how to do it. So I convinced him to gut it again, so I didn't have to do it. Eventually, the time is going to come, if you do this long enough, where you're going to have to gut your own deer, and you better learn how to do it. There's ways to do it better than this, but this is efficient enough that efficiency is one thing, safety is one thing, and cleanly and correctly processing the meat is one thing. So those are the keys to me, and as long as I touch on those things, I think this will be a pretty good video, I hope. What else are we going to need in order to do this? You're going to need a sharp knife. Now, I do say a sharp knife. I have a knife sharpener. Did not sharpen them this year. I'm hoping this is still sharp from last year. I didn't shoot enough deer. I shot 2 deer here in Pennsylvania last year and used it on 2 deer here, and it should still be fine. But if you've cut into the ground, or if you cut into bone or something like that, you'll dull your knives pretty fast. And we'll find out pretty quick if it's sharp. But I do recommend you get a sharp knife. I also like this one because not only does it have the buck knife type blade, it has that, but it also has a flip and zip, which is it has a round nubbin on the end here, so it doesn't puncture any of the vitals or the stomach or anything like that. And you can slide it right up the lining and do a great job. So I like this sort of knife. If you can get hands on one of these. I also like this one because it folds away. They make these that don't fold, and then you got to carry a sheath and everything else. I don't like that. I do like this because I can just throw this right in I clean it up when I'm done. I'll put it back in its little sheath there or whatever, its little packet, and I'll throw it right in my back of my backpack, and we're good to go. So I love having it. And it's orange. You're in the field, in the woods, leave this on the ground, you'll be able to find it. It's awesome. So it's a good little knife. This is Outdoor Edge makes it. And I also have an Outdoor Edge game processing knife packet that I'll use when I process the deer. I don't know if I'm going to do that video today, but we'll see how we make out. So you do need a knife. I also recommend something that's really handy is either somebody else to hold the legs on the deer or some bungee straps. Those are very handy when you're gutting because you can strap it up and get it out of your way. I have never gutted a deer on the bucket before, but I thought it's kind of funny too. Another quick story. I'm down in the woods to get this deer, and I pull in there with a Ranger. I don't like to gut them in the woods. I like to gut them either up in the field where the vultures can get at them instead of down in the woods where you're attracting coyotes. I like to minimize that as much as possible. But even better idea is to gut it here in the garage and dispose of in contractor garbage bags. You can see it right here on the GoPro too. But these are contractor garbage bags, real thick garbage bags in a garbage can, and there's hardly anything in there. And I'll put all the guts right in here. And that way we can dispose of all of that with the garbage instead of leaving it out in the woods where we're attracting predators or something that might be interested in that. I like to discourage that, and I don't like them to find food here. That's the thing. I like them to, if they don't find food here, they'll spend less time here. That's a great way to deal with predators, and in my opinion, it's probably the most effective way to deal with predators. From what I've read anyway, it's more effective than hunting and everything else. Just like me. If I don't see deer there, I'm not going to go there. So if they don't have rabbits, they don't have raccoons, they don't have possums, they don't have things like that to eat, maybe they won't come here. If they don't have gut piles, they won't be attracted here. That's the idea. Hopefully that will work. The next thing you're going to need, good light. If you're in the woods, I showed in a previous video the lantern. That's a good one, a battery powered lantern. You can turn that on. And I talked about how I wrapped the back side of it in aluminum foil to project the light out in one direction. Something like that is great if you are going to be doing this on your own in the woods. I've used it many times for that purpose. And what else we got? You should have coffee. Now the reason I say that is coffee is an important part of my day, and I love to drink coffee. And it keeps me calm, it keeps me happy, and so I'm going to drink this because this can get to be an excruciating, back-breaking, irritating task, and you can get really grouchy. But get yourself in circumstances where you won't be grouchy. Get yourself in circumstances where it will go smooth and you can make the most of it. Have a positive attitude, maintain that positive attitude, hopefully, and that way, you know, it'll go better. I've had a miserable time of this where by the time I was done, I was never going to do it again. It's not going to be that way anymore. I'm going to make this effective. The funny thing was, this is what I was telling you. I shot this doe, went down to get her with a Ranger, had the Ranger backed up to her there, and I could not lift this doe. I have gotten old because 5 years ago, I would have picked this doe up by myself, thrown it in the back of the Ranger and driven out in the field, gutted it, and brought it in here, processed it, no problem. Now, I had trouble even getting this doe. There was no way I was going to physically be able to lift this doe and put it in the Ranger. So I drive over to the barn. I took the Ranger up there. I was going to get a board, maybe slide her up the board into the back of the Ranger. And then I'm like, I don't have that. So I drove up to the tractor shed, and I pulled in there looking for a plank or a board or something. And I'm like, well, right there's the tractor with a bucket. Let's just go get the tractor. Last year, I struggled with that buck, pulling it out of the woods on the back of the Ranger when I could have just gotten the bucket. Like any mature deer I shoot from now on, I'm going to haul out of the woods on the bucket. You can't beat it. And then I got to thinking, what a great way to the gutter too. I'll gutter right here on the bucket so I don't have to bend over and roll around on the ground. Half the time you're rolling around on the ground, it's a big old pain. I think it'll go smoother. I've never done it this way before, but we'll see. I'm hoping it will be smoother. Last thing I would suggest you need some rubber gloves. I have a box of them. I'll show you. And I rotate these in and out, and that's what we do. So we got rubber gloves. So we'll see where we're at, okay? I'm going to start, I'm going to go right over here, and I'm going to start by taking one of the legs, and we're going to try and zip tie, bungee cord, and it's not the same kind of bungee, in case you're wondering. You know, there's people ask me all the time, where did you get the name Bunjie? Where did that name come from? And I'm surprised. I'm surprised and happy to hear that people care, then find that kind of like to be an interesting topic as to why, where I came up with that name Bunjie for the crossbow. But and it does have a little bit to do with, you know, the bungee cord, I guess. I guess you could say that. But so that's what we're looking at. I'm going to bring the camera in here. Hopefully that'll help. See if I can get the camera right on this thing. You'll be able to hear me better. And you will be able to hopefully see me better. And it looks like we're in focus. We're going to do it. This is a messy, grotesque job. So I apologize in advance. Now you can see she's already got a cut here. This is where, what I did and what I recommend you do. I started to do this and I thought, you know, I really ought to video this. So pinch the skin, pull it up tight, get the point of your knife in there safely away from your fingers, make the opening big enough to insert the flip and zip handle. And once this flip and zip handle is in there, then you can zip it right up through here. And I go past the legs, clear up into the brisket, and open up as much room as you can. If it's a buck, you're going to want to stop here because you don't want to get rid of the cape. And then it's going to be a pain in the neck. With a buck, you want to save from here up if you can, and basically only cut here. There's ways to do the cape on a buck on the back, and that's what the taxidermists prefer. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to show you how you can, you know, scramble around at the last minute and do your deer and get it out of the woods. So if you're in the woods, you're going to be rolling around on the ground doing this stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're younger than me, that works just fine. I have done it many times. So we got the knife. I'm going to close this blade. That's a safety blade. We can close that. The other blade, I don't believe is a safety blade. No, it is. It does have a safety mechanism on it. Now that once we got that under, then we set this under there. See what this does, that round part doesn't puncture the stomach lining or any of the vitals. And we're going to slide it right up there and open it up like that. We're going to have to do it again once we get that inside that lining because that's the stomach lining. But we've gotten through the skin. That's the first step. So we're going to go over here. You got a doe. She has milk all through here. You're going to get milk. You're going to see it. It's just the way it is. There are ways to cut around that, and I am trying to do that now, but it's not cooperating really. But we're going to try and cut around that to save that all as one separate piece. And that knife is not going to do it well. So I'm going to lift that out of the way, close that, and we're going to try and work around that without puncturing that. You get down in here, you don't want to puncture the urinary tract, you don't want to puncture the milk, anything like that any more than you have to. And man, that is not cooperating. Doing it on the ground actually is not necessarily a bad thing, but I've already cut open the milk and stuff. So what we're going to do, cut right around here the best we can. And she was still nursing and stuff. She had fawns with her, but there's no question in my mind that by the time the crossbow season rolls around, by the time the 37 days of awesome rolls around here in northeastern Pennsylvania, the fawns can survive on their own. They do not need the mother at this point. That is a fact. 2 months on this planet and a deer can ruminate. And by this time, they've already gotten some education from her about how to survive in the wild. So we're good there too. So I don't feel so bad about that. I just don't like shooting deer when there's witnesses around, when the other, because you're kind of contaminating that hunting spot for those other deer. They probably are not coming back. So now we got to get under the stomach lining. That is the next step. And we'll get under that skin the best we can. And with this knife, you really don't have to worry about puncturing any vitals. And boy, I love that, because it's so nice to not have to worry about getting guts all over the place and everything else. So we're going to get under there the best we can. See if I can here with that. And get under that membrane. Okay. And you know, the other thing too, this stuff, it grosses you out the first few times you do it, but then you get to the point where it's just like, it's such a human and natural thing to be doing that you kind of wait for it. You know, you kind of get excited about doing it the next time. So don't hesitate to do this. A lot of guys take their deer to processors. I did that for years. The last few years I have not taken it to a processor. I've really done it this way because I really just prefer to do it myself. I know when I'm done that the deer is as clean as possible. I don't want to get into the processing story of this too much yet, but I can tell you that they get a lot of cleaning is a big part of the process when I handle these deer. I clean them over and over throughout this process. Once I've gutted this deer, I'll back this tractor out and I will put the hose right to it, clean out the carcass completely, clean it right out good. That cools it down real fast. And then you've got even more time to process it, so you're not in a rush. This deer's only been out of the woods for close to an hour now. It's only been dead for an hour, so we're good time-wise. Usually you gotta go find the deer first, and then you're scrambling around, and that's a whole other video, the finding of a deer. So I got a bunch of other videos planned. It's just having the time, the right time to do the video. That's the key. Now I'm going to take this a little bit just to get this hide up and out of our way. We are going to be skinning this deer. So I am anyway. So we'll do a little bit of this just to make sure we're in good shape here. Clean it up and just be careful not to puncture through the ribs or anything like that. But we do want to get that out of the way for us. And we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. Got to go both ways. Here, open her up a little bit. You got to be careful. You just don't want to. They blow it up because the heat. They blow it up because they're dead. So that stomach's real tight, and it doesn't take much to puncture that. So you got to be real careful. Having it up on this shelf like this, up in the air, man, this is saving my back. I can even adjust that. Put a chair here if I had to. This is the way to do it. So now I got to open this up and get the guts out. And there's the big thing with the guts. We're going to pull the guts out, put them in a bucket, okay? Then we're going to reach up in here. There's a diaphragm here. You'll pull everything out, guts and all the intestines and all that. Then you've got a diaphragm. We're going to cut the diaphragm out so we can get through there. The lungs and the heart are in front of the diaphragm. And we do have to reach all the way up in there, cut the trachea off, cut the esophagus off, and pull the heart and lungs out as well and put them away. Now the heart I probably will save. Lungs go in the bucket. But the heart I probably will save. So, because this deer did not get hit in the heart, so it should be, the heart should still be good. Ideally I would have cut that off and flapped it this way, but I did not. So next step, we're going to figure out how to get in there a little bit and puncture that. Now we don't want to puncture the contents, and that's the key. Right here I can feel our ribs. I'm going to cut through that lining up here on the ribs, because I know that the ribs will protect that knife and keep the knife from puncturing the interior stuff. And now I'm going to take this and put it under here, and you see what I did. I punctured it. Now I've got that rounded tip, and I can push that rounded tip right around here like that. You can still puncture the vitals with the rounded tip. You've got to be careful. But if you do it right, you won't have a problem. And you can see it expanding right out. That stuff's going to roll right out of here, and it's under a lot of pressure, so you have to be very careful, because we don't want to pop any of this stuff, right? We want that to go in there, not in our face. That's one thing about doing it at this height, at this level. You're kind of asking for trouble. If you're gutting her out in the woods, you just roll it over, and then you roll the deer over and all that. I'm going to have to tip the bucket a little bit. Bear with me. That ought to be good. It's almost falling out of there, right off by itself. Get another pair of gloves here. We'll get back to, we'll pull that right out of there. The key, like I was saying before, safety's one thing. Always push a knife away from you. Have a sharp knife. Those two things will keep you from getting cut. Very important in my opinion. The other thing that's about safety is the cleanliness of the deer for processing purposes. And that is not a problem at this point because the meat's protected by the hide, and we're going to hose this out when we're done. So the fact that this thing is dirty, the bucket's dirty, nobody cares about that. That is not a concern, not a problem. The key is just to keep this from getting in your face. So we're not worried about that stuff. I will say, I'm pretty proud of this deer because she's pretty big. This is a big doe. And you can also see by the size of this thing, you can see the amount of weight that I would have saved if I did this in the woods. You can lift a deer a lot easier if you don't have this stuff in your way, okay? That's a big consideration as well. So let's get, without puncturing anything again, very carefully, let's get through here. We're gonna have to cut through the ribs a little bit, cut through, and that's gonna dull that knife right up those bones a little bit to get that out of there. Now our liver is behind, the liver's back here, it's not in front of the diaphragm, just so you know. You can see right there's a lobe of the liver already coming out of the pile. So we can get that out of there. Come on. So basically in the woods you can see what we'd be doing, and the truth is if we were in the woods I would have less of a concern about harming stuff because you can just cut and hack and pull and everything else. The other thing I want to say is that from the processing standpoint, there are tenderloins inside the deer here, and that is one thing that we want to be very careful about. And those are the interior tenderloins. They're like the highlight of the deer, and for a lot of people, and me included. There. Yeah, cut this stuff loose because it's all, there are membranes that hold it in place. And the other thing I was going to say is that knife, I am not going to use the same knife for the processing of the deer. This knife is for going to be used for the, whoa, that is one smelly mess. This knife is only used for the gutting of the deer. I have a different knife set, so it doesn't need to be, I don't need to be worried about it getting wet or dirty or anything like that. Now I'm starting to think that I probably next year will not do it this way. I probably will stick to doing it in the field and just do it that way. This is, you get a good view this way. It's a lot easier with the camera, but I'll be honest with you, in the field, it's a little bit easier. I'm not aware of a way to do this without making a mess, so I can tell you that you better be prepared for that if you're going to do these things. The key though is cutting back in here. You don't want to cut those tenderloins, but you do have to separate all these guts from the deer. Oop. I'm going to cut this. I think we're getting there. Almost rolled it out of here. But the key is all this stuff sort of floats in there, you know. And the key is let it float right out of there. That's the key. Now, and you get a feel for that after you've done them a few times here. And I can actually feel what I'm, some of the organs and stuff that you touch, you kind of get a feel for what you're touching. And you start to know, wait a minute, that's that. I don't feel the heart yet, but. And then, if I can just cut this loose, it will fall right into our bucket. Woo! I'm gonna take a stab at it, so to speak. And it's that. And we are gonna cut her loose. And ta-da! Now we have filled our garbage can with 50 pounds of you-know-what innards. And then, it's one sneaky mess. But what we've done is we got all that weight out and everything is out now in the bucket. The key is just remove all the stuff that's holding it in there and pull it out in one piece if you can. Now, here's the next key, okay? The diaphragm I've already cut through, and I can reach in here and you can tell that the lungs are still there. You can tell the heart is still there, and we need to get that stuff out of there. We need to cut it loose, and the problem with that is you will find is that it's clear up front in the, you got to remove the trachea. You got to sever the trachea in order to get that out of there. I can reach in here like this. I'm reaching in here, and you can't see what you're doing. You got to reach in there and know that you are cutting the trachea to get the heart out. Because they're all connected, all this stuff. Cut it off like that. This whole mass can go in here, but I'm going to save that heart. There's my heart. And I'm going to clean it down. This whole membrane that's on the outside, if you take all that out and clean it out, I'll throw it in a baggie, in a Ziploc bag, so it's nice and clean and safe. And then I will process it, clean it, and everything else. Might pickle this one. I've never done that. Fried them, but no pickling. But it's all severed and it's good to go. This is actually, you may think like, man, why would you want to do that? But this is a very healthy thing to eat. It's actually very healthy, and a lot of people will swear to you that it is the highlight of the deer to eat. So I will either pickle this or I will fry it up in a pan with onions, and it will be yummy. It'll be fantastic. Clean it out good. When you process it, before you freeze it, before you save it, whatever, you're going to want to pump the blood right out of it, put the water right to it, soak it good, and get the water out. Now, very important that you finish this job. You have to clean out the entire anus, the rectum, pull everything out that way, or push it through this way and pull it out this way. But right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this deer heart, put this in a bag, and then I am going and get it in the fridge. And then I am going to pick up where I left off and do that part of the deer. Okay, I am back. I think we're still recording. GoPro still seems like it's got some juice, so we'll keep going. I didn't think the GoPro was going to last all that long. Steaming away. That is a great sign. But we will clean this all out. I don't need to clean it up, take the rest of this meat out, because it's all emptied out. Once you cut the diaphragm out, and this is the remainder of the diaphragm, if you see what I'm looking at here, it hangs down like that, that flap. That's just a muscular flap that flexes in there as the lungs breathe and the heart pumps. You got to clean that out though. Cut through that in order to get up there and get the trachea. You got to do that. Otherwise, you're leaving organs inside the deer. You're wasting the heart, first of all, but you're also leaving organs inside the deer. Yes, I threw the liver away. I do not like liver. I have cooked it, and I don't really care for it. My mother likes liver, but she does not eat enough to justify me saving the liver. So I may save the liver on the next deer that I shoot. We'll see about that, okay? But for right now, this is where we're at. I gotta get my knife back. And like I said, this knife is a mess right now, but I'm not worried about cleanliness so much at this stage. There's basic things you want to take into account, but we aren't worried about cleanliness right now the way that we will be when we process the deer. That way, then before we do that, we go through and we sterilize the entire table and we do all that stuff. Don't need to do that here because we're just gutting the deer. Again, this is a process that normally would take place, and this knife is not sharp, but normally this process would take place in the woods. So yeah, that tip is dull and everything. Holy cow. What an awful knife. Terrible knife. I went and I had a guide once who was telling me that his knife, he was really shocked at how dull his knife was. And I know how that, I laughed at the time, but I kind of know how frustrating that is and how much of a surprise it really can be. You think the knife is good, you think it's all shined right up and sharp and everything else, and then you find out later on it's not. We've got to adjust our little goodies there, and we're going to do that right now. I'm using up my Hunter Specialties gloves, but there's nothing that says you have to have those gloves. Some people are allergic to latex or something, so they have to have special gloves. That is totally okay. Get the special gloves. Make this easy. Make the whole process easy on yourself. What we're going to do, get in here, and we are going to remove where the milk was on this dough, all that. We're going to remove that, and then we're going to take the urinary tract, and we are going to take the other stuff. Yep, we're still filming up there. Checking that GoPro. Make sure that's still filming. I hope this video is turning out good, man. This is the kind of video that... I don't mind shooting videos like this, but they're not the kind that I normally shoot. Normally they're a little fancier. Not because I try to be fancy, but because it's just easier to shoot that way. It's easier to film. When you plan stuff out ahead of time and do it. Makes it easier to do this whole process. So we're going to do this. We're going to clean this up a little bit. Very careful not to, because we're looking right here at meat that we're going to eat, okay? We're going to clean that up good, and we are going to eat that. So all the roasts are right here in the hindquarters, and that's some of the best part of the deer, in my opinion, because it goes in a slow cooker real well. The old crock pot. Can't beat it. Get it in the crock pot, your family will thank you. There's nothing better than a good venison crock pot recipe, in my opinion. That's my favorite way to cook venison, by far. Just feel your way around there. Don't be bashful. You know, she's not going to complain, that's for sure. Again, feel free to politely leave any suggestions for me that you have. I totally get that there's better ways to do stuff. I am not an expert on this at all. I'm just showing you the way, trying to do a video to help people, because people ask me about this stuff. And I know there's other videos on there. I urge you to just watch a whole bunch of videos, and you'll see things that you'll like better than other things. And you'll watch other videos that do this, and you'll say, wow, I like the way that guy did it better than the way Rich did it. And that's fine. That's totally okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings any. Tell me to watch those videos, and I will do that. So that's now done. But we are not really done, and I'll tell you why. All the fecal matter goes out the anus here. I'll get as much of that here as I can. If I cannot get it, I'm going to have to do it on the ground. It'll be out there with the hose, because you really don't want that in the same room with you when you are processing the deer. That is not a good thing. Plus, there's a bone, okay? They got the pelvis. There's a bone right here. And that canal where that stuff runs is on the other side of that bone. So ideally what you do, and I really can't do it in this bucket, but I will get her on the ground, I'll step on one leg, lift up the other leg, and I will bust that bone with a saw that I have. I can saw through it with that outdoor edge saw. Once I've sawed through it, it gets real rough. Watch your fingers in there, because you'll be running your fingers back and forth, you'll cut your fingers. But you're going to get that out of there one way or another. Cutting around here on this end, around the anus with the knife, is the first step. We do that, and that allows you to pull some of it out of there. If you're bothered by that stuff, then hire somebody or something. But it's a good thick bone there. On a deer this age too, it's an extra problem, and I cannot do it in this bucket, so I'm not even going to try. So the next step is, she's full of blood too. The cavity will be full of blood, and you get a feel for how much blood is in these things and how much of this deer will leak out if you make a proper shot and have to track a deer. There's tons of blood that can be spilled out. However, this is blood-proof. This is waterproof. And if you shoot that deer, absent those two holes, that blood just lays in this cavity, right? It's just going to lay in there and fill up on that deer. So depending on shot placement, on the exit wound, and stuff like that, you may not have a good blood trail. I've shot deer where I made a perfect shot and didn't have a good blood trail. So it's hit and miss. There's no guarantees in this business. I have said that over and over. So I hope this has been helpful. Once I get her done here, we'll pick up where we left off and wrap up this video. Whew, I am whipped, and I've got the deer gutted. Hopefully you got something out of that. Maybe if nothing else, I know it was a long rambling video. It's going to be the longest how to gut a deer video on YouTube probably. So I hope you get something out of that long rambling narrative. But the deer is gutted. She's all gutted and ready to go. I got that all up, hosed it out good, hosed out the whole carcass, cleaned off the lawn and the driveway, hosed it down good. We should be all right with that. This is a heck of a process, and I'm very tired already. And we're getting close to noon. I'm going to have some lunch. I'm going to hang this deer up, start the gutting or the skinning process. I'm not going to make a video about that now. I'll do a video about that some other time. For that process, I'll hang it up from the rafters here in the garage, and you need a gambrel for that, which I have that thing, of course. But here in the garage, what I do, I'll hang it right from the rafters here. Just make sure you got lots of light, and then you work from the top down. I hang them by the back legs with the gambrel and work from the back down. Now that we've hosed her out good, it's okay to work from the back down because the deer is pretty sanitary, right? Pretty well cleaned out. I hope all is going well with your crossbow season wherever you are, and until next time, all hail Bunjie!